Good morning and welcome to the 11 show with Joanne and friends. This morning I am joined by Emma Marmion, President of Newry Chamber of Commerce and Trade. Am I right with my titles? And this morning we are having a little bit of technical detail. We're going to go ahead with the interview just to see how that goes. There might be some delay between my sort of questions to Emma and Emma's answers back, and a little bit on that. But we're going to give it a go and see how this morning unfolds for everyone, for us all. So thank you so much, Emma, for joining me this morning. And
thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We're in sunny South Armagh this morning. Such incredible weather. Another beautiful morning to waken up to this morning.
It's amazing, isn't it? I think we've been very blessed to have this weather while I've been on lockdown.
It's absolutely. And I know you were with me here a few weeks ago, Emma, and in fact, actually the last event that we both attended really before this all happened was the Chamber's event for International Women's Day. Talk to us a little bit about that event and kind of take us back to where everything was kind of pre-lockdown, and we'll see where the rest of our conversation unfolds this morning.
Well, it was such a wonderful event, and it was the first time that the Chamber had done anything like that. And I suppose 2020 is such a unique year for us, and we had huge plans for this year because we are 200 years old. And so we are now one of the oldest chambers on the island of Ireland. And I suppose what also was unique about this year is that we now had a president and a vice president. And for the first time in our history, they were both women. So we wanted to celebrate that in some way. So International Women's Day was the perfect opportunity for us to do that. We also wanted to showcase a lot of the different places that people can do business and can have conferences in the Newry and wider area. And we chose Cleavey Castle, which is where I am from. So it was just a really, really special event. We had roughly about 200 women in that room, and it was a very much a motivational empowerment and a celebration of women in business in this area. So it was a great way to kick off International Women's Day and kick off my term as president. And then we had lockdown.
Absolutely. And, I guess there were whispers at that stage that things were changing, but it's all seemed so very far away, and I honestly don't feel that definitely. I mean, that week everything changed so quickly, and I really don't think we could have envisaged the reality, even though we had stuff coming in from Italy and we kind of knew it was happening. But there's a tendency with all of us, when it's happening out there, we kind of leave it out there. It's not until it comes in. And I know the keynote speaker that day was Nicola Connolly-Byrne. And share with me a little bit about what your takeaway was from that day and how that has maybe been sustaining you through this time.
Well, I think the event in general was very much about celebration of women and how far women had come in business. And that was and also a sense of community. And everybody has been so welcoming and supportive since I became president towards the end of November. And there was really that coming together as a business community. And I think that has carried right the whole way through the entire lockdown, that businesses are all going through the same thing and the same difficulties, and there is a sense of togetherness and community. But what Nicola was talking about, which was really important, was around self-care and around resilience. And that is going to be at the forefront of every business owner and every person, I think, going back to work, how we look after ourselves and how we look after our people, because there is no doubt that workplaces will look completely different whenever the lockdown is over and as we start to go back to our new normal. So there's going to be much more conversation around resilience and self-care, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, and I think this morning, there is a lot of confusion, and it's important at this stage just to note that, last night's announcement by Boris Johnson was relevant for England, is my understanding. We are still, we're waiting on the Assembly to change things. For us this morning, there is nothing different than there was yesterday. And yet there's this confusion because we kind of, we're looking to different, I guess here in this area in particular, we're looking to the Assembly, we're looking to Dublin, and we're looking to London. And, there's different approaches in all of those areas. So that can bring a degree of confusion, and particularly for the business community, which obviously confusion then leads to frustration. And indeed, I know many businesses who have fallen, I guess, through the loop of any of the support packages that have been offered for a variety of different reasons. And so, those words, resilience, how we support ourselves, how we support our team members, how businesses support their team, it really is, I don't think we can stress how important that is, because it's really going to be front and center of how we move forward.
Absolutely. And I think, the wonderful work of the Chamber is that over the last number of weeks, I suppose actually around about the time of Brexit, and then carrying on now into COVID-19, we have had very close relationships with the different ministers and with our local council. And that correspondence is on almost a weekly basis. And the role of the Chamber is to be the voice of Newry businesses and the local community. So whatever issues businesses are going through, it's our job to feed that, through to the ministers so that we can get decisions made quickly. And that has been working. Even on Friday, we had a conference call with Conor Murphy, and again, feeding in, a very wide range of businesses across the entire district. We're all represented, and we're all able to try to get answers and also to feed through the issues that we're experiencing on the ground from each of the different sectors. And that's really, really important so that we can get the support to businesses as they need it. Mm-hmm. Now, there is going to be a hardship fund, which is the details of that we're expecting this week, which should approach a number of those businesses who did fall between the gaps of the range of support, which has been announced really since March. Now, it's going to capture most people, but there are still going to be people who will fall in the gaps again, and we have commitments that that those would be looked at further, because one of the biggest issues as a chamber, we would survey our members very regularly to find what the pulse is like in our community. And one of the issues is that we have about 13% of companies who only have about 1 month of cash flow to operate. We have about 2/3 of our businesses, who would really only be able to stretch to about 3 months of cash flow. So being able to get the support and funding through to businesses is vitally important for their sustainability and for us to be able to have a business to, go back to, and for jobs for people to go back to. So yes, our communication with the different stakeholders, with our council, with the different ministers is vitally important. But as you said, the resilience of business owners are definitely being tested at the moment. This is probably one of the most difficult things that they've had to navigate to try to keep their businesses open. But I suppose there's always this delicate balance, because the primary concern is to keep people alive and well and healthy, and at the other side then we're trying to keep businesses open. So we're very much having to work through with our councils and on both sides of the border, so that we can basically meet both of those needs.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I guess in more recent times, and those will know that, you and I are friends as well. So I guess I've had a better understanding of the role of Chamber in more recent times that maybe I didn't as someone who is self-employed, sole trader. perhaps didn't see where chamber met me in a sense, because I had this idea that it was kind of bigger businesses, and yet the more that I guess it's like everything, you have an idea of what something might be until you actually begin to explore it and understand it, and we have a tendency to put things into boxes that go, oh well, I don't fit into that box, and I don't fit into that box, and I don't fit into that box. What I've seen from the communication coming through Chamber social media and the stuff that I know that that you're working on, the stuff I've seen you share and things like that as well, is very much that this is for all businesses. And there will be different businesses, depending on size and depending on number of employees and all of that. But that there is that space of people who I guess are sole traders and self-employed, who maybe don't feel like they have a voice, and yet when we come together in community, the chamber is there for all of those businesses.
Absolutely. Whenever I started my HR business 13 years ago, I was like very many sole traders. It was just me and one other person, and we were starting off and in the local community, and this was a brand new business, new concept, and we very much got involved with the chamber right from the very beginning. From the moment that we opened the door, we became a member of the chamber, and I suppose over the years that I've been a member, I have very much been welcomed. You very much start to understand all of the different businesses which are there. There are opportunities to collaborate and work together. There's referral of businesses. And as well as that, there's lots of training opportunities as well to help you to grow your business. One of the things that I love about being from Newry and working in Newry is that there is a sense of everybody working together and trying to help each other to get up the ladder a little bit more. So, and I think for anybody, whether you are just starting out, whether you are a sole trader, whether you're in business, there's so many opportunities there. And I think in more recent times, the chamber has done a remarkable job about ensuring that they are the voice of our local community, and representing that voice. And we have had many ministers come to meet us around issues around Brexit and now on COVID, in terms of shaping what the future of this area is going to look like. So the chamber's done all of those things over the years for me in business, but in more recent times on a more strategic level as well.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely. I think going forward, it is really that there are strength in numbers, and in order, sometimes that collective voice, always the collective voice is more powerful than perhaps the individual voice. Whilst we all need to use our individual voice, then when those voices come together, and I think for me, there's been a real sense over the last few weeks that we all have similar concerns. And as you said, cash flow for different businesses will be different and all of that. But I think very much that collective voice. And I know, as you mentioned, surveying the members, and that's open sort of to a wider business community as well. Am I right that, it's getting feedback from the area, so that the policies and the procedures and all of that kind of stuff is there for the greatest good of the whole community.
Absolutely. And we are joining with other chambers as well to get the feedback from wider Northern Ireland about what the picture looks like. So is the picture in Newry exactly the same as in Belfast or in Fermanagh or in Derry? So all of the chambers are asking the same questions so that we can, come forward with a very clear representation of what is going on in our economy. And we are getting feedback from lots of different industries, and it gives us a very clear picture of where businesses at the initial stages of COVID were reacting, and now we're now starting to get into the planning for our recovery. So we can, through the surveys, we can start to see that movement of where businesses are at and what their current concerns are.
Yeah. And I
so
guess
definitely take part. Go on to the Newry Chamber website and take part.
Yeah, we'll get the link shared into the comments on the video here so that that those voices can be captured, really. Because there can be a sense of powerlessness. You know, all of this is happening and we can kind of feel like it's out of our control, and we're kind of sitting ducks or puppets waiting for the next announcement and the next thing. And that's often a challenge in space, I guess, for people who are self-employed, because they tend to have a very much a doing nature, and they get up and they get out and they get on, and that having to sit and wait is not necessarily a comfortable, I guess, space. And I know what you mentioned there, obviously your background is HR, and so from I guess from a people's perspective, this time will have been crazy and difficult for many people. And you know, I'm reading articles, as often happens, I guess, we fall into the male-female comparison and how roles are different, and we know, I mean, that's life. The roles are different. I have read some stuff around women taking, you know, a lot more of those roles on, but regardless, male, female, everybody is in this conversation. There may be people who, post-COVID, when we're ready and when things start to move again, at the right time, and when that's, you know, safe and all of those things, we'll be looking and going, well, you know, I've managed to work from home. I've actually enjoyed it. There'll be other people going, absolutely, don't give me another day at home. Get me into the office and get me in there quick. There will be people who will be thinking, you know, maybe they haven't been working at home, and there's an opportunity for perhaps looking at a new career path, or you know, there's going to be so much come out of this. How or where, you know, what, in terms of a HR perspective, how do we support people with that?
There's a lot in that.
Yeah,
because what you've said, okay, so the thing about COVID-19 and going into a lockdown is that it's a very, very unique space for everybody. And like you said, it has brought and highlighted a number of concerns, but it's also been an opportunity for people to experience a very different normal. So we would usually say it takes 21 days to create a new habit. So if you can imagine, we're now, I think, almost 56, 57 days into a very new normal. And we are completely out of the routines that we had before. There's no rushing for people to get to schools, rushing to be anywhere. You know, we have about 43% of businesses are closed and are not trading, which means that's a lot of people who are not working at all. So they're being at home, they're experiencing things that they really enjoy. We've had this amazing weather, so they're now out cycling and running and walking and doing things that they maybe wouldn't usually have the chance to do. So we have that going on, our new normal. Now, as businesses, we are also trying to get plans together to start to reopen. So you had said, you know, what we are very much doers. When we are in business, we want to be doing something. And what we find is about 61% of businesses now have a plan to reopen. And if you are in business and you want to do something, that's one of the things that you can start to do right now. So that the moment that we get the go ahead that we can open and we can start to trade, the plan is there. And the plan is really, really important for how we start to recover and how we start to move people from this current normal that they have and to go back. Now, one of the things that has happened, you know, and rightly so, we went into lockdown because the primary concern was to ensure that we kept everybody safe and well and got through this pandemic. That was the right thing to do. But because of that, there is definitely a fragile confidence of people going back into the workplace again and going back into socializing with people. And we have to bear that in mind as employers. So we still have the same statutory responsibility to ensure that we are providing safe places of work for people. So in your planning, businesses can start to do their risk assessment. And there's no doubt that businesses are going to be completely different. We are going to be social distancing. We may not have the opportunity to have all of our teams back in the same room anymore. We may have the introduction of remote working. So people now using some of the hub spaces that are in Newry rather than going into the workplace again in offices like they were before. We may have people who are still working from home. We may move from paper-based to more electronic working. We may then still have PPE provisions still to meet. So in terms of returning, there's lots of things that the businesses can do in terms of planning, but there's no doubt that it would be a very different place. So how we communicate with our staff in terms of helping them to come back, helping them to understand what that new workplace might look like, consulting with them and asking them what that might be like, are all going to be very important things that we can do as businesses to get back up and running. There's no doubt it's going to be different, and there's no doubt that it's going to take a considerable amount of time. And I think we're still going to have, this an undercurrent of, well, what about childcare? And that's going to always be there as well. So, the businesses can start to plan, but a lot of it will be in collaboration with their people.
Yeah. And I guess as individuals, at the end of the business owners are human. They are people, and they are, they have feelings and emotions and concerns and worries and all of those things that, we all have. So first and foremost, I think we're human, and then we are whatever we are kind of after that, whatever roles we have taken in life or life has chosen for us. And so people will be going back into this space with so many different feelings and emotions, and actually sometimes being a pot of all of those feelings and emotions. I saw a diagram yesterday that said, you can be excited about going back to work, you can be worried about going back to work, and you can not want to go back to work, and you can be a little bit of all of those at different times even. It's like, okay, one day I'm kind of thinking, oh, I can't wait, and then I'm going, oh, I don't know, there's a little voice in the back of my head that is concerned and worried and all of those things. My work is obviously, a lot of it's in close proximity with both children and adults, and I think it's being mindful of all of those, even within our colleagues, because you may have someone there who hasn't actually even left the house for this period of time, maybe because of underlying health concerns or whatever else, and then things are going to be moving, and then they're going to be expected to go back into work, and that's huge for a lot of people. So I think compassion is going to be very much a key word in this next phase as we move into it. And already, we can see the split where, people last night were hoping lockdown was going to be called for, or was going to be kind of eased considerably and removed. You had other people who were saying, no, it needs to be extended, it's too soon. And there's all of that range of emotions in there. So compassion in the workplace and kindness and tolerance and all of those things, how do they fit in with all the plans, do you think? Or how can an organisation look towards those kind of ideals?
Well, I suppose one of the things that I've been very much involved in is trying to create cultures of kindness. So you're hitting all my buttons as you're saying all of that, because I think there's a huge amount of evidence in science that talks about whenever people are happy, they are much more productive. And whenever we are compassionate and empathetic and understanding, we are creating workplaces for the future which are going to be very productive, that people want to be in. So you're definitely hitting all the right notes for me in what you're saying. But I think, one of the things is that as business owners and managers and leaders, a lot of that is going to come from them. A lot of leadership is going to be shown from them. But they're also the ones who are probably feeling it the most. They're very fearful. All of those emotions that you said, fearful of the future. What does that look like? Am I going to be able to get up and running? Am I going to be starting again? What about my supply chain? What about my sales? There's a huge amount of worry that they're going to be carrying, as well as their own family worries and concerns too. And then also being compassionate and empathetic with their people. So one of the things that we're starting to do now is to work with the leaders and the managers first, to make sure that they are looking after themselves. And that doesn't mean going to the gym and working out and doing their exercise, stuff that they have to do to make sure that they are in a place where they can feel and take on the concerns of their people. And having all of that time and teaching them what those tools maybe look like is really important now. Because as you said, we have a fragile confidence of people returning. They're going to be very fearful. And we have to take on board all of those fears and how we alleviate those. And also people coming back from shielding, how do we create that confidence? So our managers and our leaders are going to be in that position to encourage those people along. And then that's the second phase for us, is working then along with all of the staff about what self-care looks like for them. And you alluded to it at the very beginning, women, that one of the recent statistics has come out that women are basically carrying out 2 full-time jobs before they then do their full-time job, because they're now carers, they're now providing homeschooling, they're now looking after the house, they now don't have any support from maybe family or childcare providers that they had before. So again, we're also starting to look and train staff about what productivity looks like, what managing their time from home is going to look like. So there's a huge amount of things we can do now that gets ready for when we do finally get that announcement that we can start to go back.
I guess
it's going to be very important.
I guess it's seen now perhaps as the amber kind of phase. We're at the traffic lights. We know the lights are going to go green for us at some point. And how are we getting ready for that stage? And that culture of kindness is something that I'm a huge fan of. And having spent some time listening to the Dalai Lama speaking about kindness and compassion in action and all of those things. And I'm also a huge fan, and for anybody listening in, I'll put the link into the comments, of Dr. David Hamilton and his work on kindness. And I spent yesterday afternoon listening to like an hour-and-a-half long podcast. And he kind of talks about merging the world of science and spirituality, so that he can bring the science to things like kindness. And he done an excellent kind of diagram of how contagious kindness is, and the mathematical breakdown and all that went with that. And that can be so apparent in organizations, but as we both know, it's really important that kindness actually must begin with ourselves. Because when we're compassionate and kind and gentle to ourselves, then that gives us the tools to basically be kind with other people. And I suppose one of the phrases, or one of the words that have been running around in my head is the idea of emotional fitness. So I think for many years now, we've kind of, we've looked at the physical fitness, we've actually looked at the mental health fitness, and there's a lot of conversation around that. There's another level to that, which is our emotional intelligence, or emotional fitness, or emotional resilience. And I passionately believe that the word emotions and our emotional well-being is going to be also very significant over the next few months, and indeed for the next while, in terms of helping us to navigate these.
Absolutely. I think whenever we look at the world of HR and we start to look at what we were able to do within businesses. I suppose HR is, in terms of human resources and people management, it's called a lot of different things, and it has changed over the years from what people would have thought personnel management was or HR management was to what it is today. We've been able to look at that whole journey, and the role of HR is very, very different. And like you said, maybe years ago it started off with, physical health. Then it maybe started with mental health and having employee helplines and things like that. Now it's moving on to, how do we ensure that we have our managers and our leaders equipped to have those types of conversations, to be able to say, how do you feel? Yeah. How are you feeling today? Yeah. And to be able to deal with the response back. Because what we find, the campaigns in terms of, it's okay not to feel okay. That campaign is vitally important because we want people to talk and to speak and to say that they're not feeling okay. The problem was then that managers weren't equipped with how to respond to that conversation. So over the last 2 years, I've been working very closely with leaders and managers and supervisors about how to have that conversation, how to support people, where to direct them to, so that they can get the support that they need quickly, and that we can, have happy people, happy families, happy communities, happy workplaces. So you're 100% right. It's contagious. If we can work within our businesses and we can make that difference in businesses, we can have a ripple effect right across the entire community.
Yeah, because the workplace is the perfect space to begin conversations that people may not show up for. They may not sign up for a wellbeing class or a session on emotional intelligence or things like that. But those can be very much integrated into the workplace environment. And I know one of the events that we were involved in together last year, and you mentioned about the burden for women and that that type of thing, and that's fact. That's not kind of made up stuff. Like, often when you talk about this, and men maybe listening in are saying, oh, there's 2 women and they're saying poor women, they get all the heavy load, but it is fact. And one of the events that we were involved in last year was around menopause in the workplace, and how we could support those conversations. And from that came, I guess, other conversations around menstrual awareness and menstrual health in general in the workplace, and that kind of change in cycle. And that's an area of work that I'm incredibly passionate about helping women to work with the energies of their cycle. And I feel as well that this has perhaps been an opportunity for women to be a little bit more fluid with their time, that there's not the same level of structure. Now, I appreciate that people are needing to create structure to get things done, and when they're juggling all those balls, it's structure. But there is a little bit more opportunity for being quite fluid with that. And even in friends that I'm talking to, you can almost notice the things that they're doing each week is kind of changing. There might be a week where it's a very creative week and they're baking loads, and then there could be a week where they're cleaning loads, and then there's a week where it's very productive, and it's all of those kind of changes. And as you say, those things weren't things that were considered in HR like 10 years ago. But now they're very much front and foremost of the conversations as a whole package.
Absolutely. And I think, for men and women, how they've responded throughout lockdown is very different. There's some people who went straight to find structure. Even there was, parents were trying to create structure around, well, how are we going to meet all of the demands that we now have? We've maybe taken away the demands of doing the runs to school or the runs for football or music or swimming or, whatever, those things are. But now we've had to add in another element of, well, how do we get schoolwork done? How do we, if we maybe had two working from home parents, how are we going to meet those demands? How are we going to entertain the children? So without the support of families and communities that we would have had before. So how everybody reacted was very different. And you're right, we went from a period of reacting to what we can sometimes call the trauma, the shock of what was being said. It was almost immediate that we have to stop what you're doing, you're in lockdown. And then now we're into this period of, well, this is our new normal, do I want to change something? And we're now in that sort of recovery phase. And we'll probably still be in that recovery phase, and as we start to shake the normal and start to go back. But in HR, we look at the physical, emotional, mental health and the learning and development of people, and all of those things are really coming into place now. About how we say to people, where are you finding joy? Because people who were maybe working 12, 14 hours a day, and maybe didn't have the time to focus on their physical health or to do things that they love to do, are now having all of this opportunity. So the things that we have been talking about for years, people are now getting the chance to practice it at home in a different way. So we'll probably still continue those conversations when we get back.
Yeah. And I guess something just struck me there, and you may not have the answer to this straight away, Emma, but we can maybe come back with some resources for people. So if, for example, a person is working within an organization whereby it is perhaps not as forward thinking as some organizations may be, and they're feeling, all of this sounds lovely, but where do I go to make those changes? Or where, how do I figure out what I want to do? Is there a space, I guess, for someone to kind of access, I'm thinking like a career coach, a HR professional on a personal level, so that maybe, you may not want to rock up to your HR professional in your organization if your vision is to leave that organization. Do you have any recommendations for paths that people can take for that way? And I know you run some programs as well. So just kind of thinking along those lines, how we can signpost people to finding those solutions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the difficulty, because I want to say, yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
But I'll be able to, because yes, in terms of having that conversation, you can have a conversation with your HR department or with your business owners or supervisors if you want to request flexible working. So if you are starting to realize, maybe some of the concerns that, maybe in terms of meeting your childcare responsibilities over the next number of months, particularly if the business is going to return in June or July and you still have the children off school, you can immediately go now and start to say, different flexible working options. So you could look at reducing your hours. You can look at working at different times. You can maybe look at the broader week instead of working Monday to Friday, maybe looking at working at weekends. So sometimes that can be enough for people to feel I've got more of a work-life balance, that I've got, we just call it it's not even a work-life balance. We would now just refer to it as a life balance. Mm-hmm. Because it's not the balance of work, it's about how work factors in the entire cycle of everything that you want to do in your life. So, flexible working and those requests, you can immediately go to your business owners and to your HR department to support you on that. But if you are in a place where you don't want to go back to that job, I know the recruitment agencies, are very active at the moment. One company that I've worked with in Australia is saying that the biggest difficulty that they're having as a business is that the recruiters are very actively recruiting their people out of the workplace. So it could be the time for people to explore that. But if you want a completely different career, well, then that's where you would work with somebody like myself. And there's other executive coaches too, to support you in terms of looking beyond where you are and the type of role that you would like to do and what that vision would look like, and building your confidence to be able to go after that. So a lot of work that I've done over the last 7 to 8 weeks or so has been in that space where we have people who are now going to go self-employed. They have brand new ideas, things that they have been holding back on doing, and either because they're now going to go off on layoff, or they could possibly be made redundant, or their job is now uncertain, they're now going after those opportunities. So it's an exciting space for them too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Emma, we are at the end of our show today. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to anyone who is watching in. If you do have any questions for either myself or Emma, pop them into the comments there and we'll get back to them later on today. Thank you to Destination Newry for hosting. I am back on Thursday and I am joined by a representative of Women's Aid actually on Thursday, and we'll be talking about what they're doing and how they're supporting women, and we'll be having that wider conversation. So please do join me for that. And I know, Emma, you're a huge supporter of the work of Women's Aid as well, and you're on their board there. So thank you very much to everyone for watching, and as I said, to Destination Newry for hosting. And I look forward to connecting with you through the week. Thanks a million, Emma. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.